of looking into the book of Genesis, looking at where everything all started in the Bible, in our existence, in life. And last week we had looked at God as He created the heavens and the earth and everything around us. And we looked at man's place in creation. How, as part of creation, we were given a position of dominion over creation, but at the same time, we were put in subjugation, in submission, under God's authority. Okay. Now this week, I want to address two questions. Number one, why did God create anything at all? And number two, why did God create us, mankind? And here's the first question of why God created. You don't have to turn there with me, but I want to read two passages for you. First comes from Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3. This is Isaiah seeing a vision of the angels in heaven. And the angels were crying out to each other, saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of His glory." Right? So the earth was created to show forth His glory. Psalm 19 verse 1, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament, or the earth, shows His handiwork." Right? So everything that God made, He made to show His glory, to show how great He is, and to show that He's awesome. So I guess He put His glory on display for us to see. Romans chapter 1 verse 20 says, "For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes, God's invisible attributes, are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse." God put Himself into everything, right? I don't know how many of you are people who like to do crafts, or if you like to create art. And I know we have some artists here, right? When you create something, right? When you make something, even with music, when you make music, as you create, you put a signature of yourself into that, right? Some people would say, like, I know Danielle has a very specific style in the way she draws. Peter has his own unique style, right? James, the way he plays is beautiful. The way I play, not so much. So we each have our own style of creating and making something, right? And that's our signature in creation. And God says, in His creation, in the creation of the world, since then, His invisible attributes, the things about God that we can't see with our eyes, we can see in the world around us, right? So God made the world to show us how great He is. I don't know how many of you have ever gone stargazing. Around here in the city, it's kind of hard to see the stars at night because there's so much light pollution, right? But if you've ever been out in the boonies, out in the middle of nowhere, and looked up in the sky, it's something else. A few weeks ago, our family took a trip up to Portland, and we took the train down from Portland to San Jose. And between Klamath Falls, Oregon, and Redding, California, there was a long stretch where the train was traveling by night, and it was the middle of the night, but we were going through the mountains, and it was a pretty windy train track, I guess. And you know, you look out the windows and you see trees and some snow because it was cold in the mountains. But at night, you know, we had a bunk in our seats, and so we were laying down to sleep. And from my vantage point, I could see out the window right up in the skies. And several times at night, I woke up in the middle of the night as the train's winding its way through the mountains. And I looked, and the stars were glorious. And you know, as I looked, it really started to dawn on me just really how small we are, right? How small mankind is. I mean, we live here on earth. We're all about us and our accomplishments and achievements, and we think we're something else. But when we see ourselves in the midst of the stars, we're tiny and minuscule. Right? And so, in all creation, God puts Himself in there. His greatness, His awesomeness can be seen. And if I would choose to acknowledge God, then as I look around, I see His glory in all His creation. So then, we come back to the question of why God created the world. He created the world to show His glory. Okay, who is He showing His glory to? To us, to mankind. Right? So that's one of the reasons why God created us as mankind. He wanted us to come to know Him as we live in His creation. You know, we said the heavens declare God's glory. right? The heavens are declaring God's glory. We were put here on earth, are existing. We were put here to receive that declaration, to see it, to take it in, and to be awestruck by it. Right? We were put here to receive God's glory, to see how great He is, and in seeing God's glory all around us, then we come to know Him. Right? So God put us here to start a relationship with us, to reveal Himself to us, and for us to come and receive the revelation of Himself. Right? But there is another aspect of why God created us. And the answer can be found in looking at how God created us. And I'm not talking about the science of the creation, because I don't understand how that happened. But there is something this Bible tells us specifically of how God made mankind. So if you have your Bibles with you, turn with me to Genesis, book of Genesis, chapter 1. We're going to look at two verses in there, verses 26 and 27. And if you have a Bible, read along with me. If you can't find the passage, just go ahead and listen. Then God said, right? So God, this is toward the end of creation. God's made the heavens, He's made the earth, He's separated the waters from the land, He's made the skies and the sea, the air in between, put all the animals, plants, everything in there. The last step, God says, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him. Male and female, He created them. So we were created, first of all, to fulfill a function. And we looked at this last week of how we were put here to have dominion over creation. Right? But we are also put here in God's image, right? But it says here very specifically, God created mankind in His image. Now, what does it mean? What does it mean to be created as an image of something? To be made as an image of something, usually there's a purpose in that. It's to show, to demonstrate, or to represent something. I don't know how many of you like movies. I'm kind of a movie fan. Big fan of the Marvel movies and superhero movies and such, sci-fi movies. And I really appreciate prop replicas, right? It's the things that you see used in the film. There's companies out there that'll take those props and they'll make exact replicas of them. And I've seen some of them up close and personal. It's a thing to behold. It looks pretty much exactly like the props that were used in the film. And I don't own any because they usually cost $7,000, these really nice replicas. But these, I remember as a kid going to Universal Studios and I saw this, a copy of the Back to the Future DeLorean, right? How many of you have seen Back to the Future, right? That sleek metal car, the DeLorean. And I remember standing there, and I was like 8 or 9 years old. My jaw dropped. I was like, oh man, this is awesome, right? And you get to see a copy or a likeness of the original, and you get to, put your hands on it, touch it, and appreciate it, right? Replica, I don't know, have you ever purchased replicas of artwork? Right? We're not going to own any original Picassos, but in our house, if you come to our house, you'll see the Picasso prints, literal Picasso prints. We downloaded the photo from the internet, and we printed it and framed it, and it looks as good as a real thing. We got 3 little Picasso prints on the wall. It's really smart. I always thought of that. I never would have thought of that. It allows you, again, to admire the likeness of the original, right? There's another example of things that are made as an image, right? Kids. I don't know how most of you don't have kids, but kids are many times an image of the parents, right? And someday if you're over, I can show you this picture of Alice when she was a toddler, and I'll put it next to a picture of Zoe when she was a toddler. You can't tell them apart. Right? They were like a spitting image of each other. And as they grow, maybe they start to look different, and thankfully for my kids, they look different than I do. But they exhibit your character, your traits. Right? Sometimes, somebody's describing your kids and they're talking about their personality, and you stop and you think, wait, are you describing me or my son? Because in many ways, they are an image of you. Right? People see the kids and they see something about the parents, which is why we always stress to our kids, behave well. Because you're out there, you're representing us, right? When you don't behave well, people look at you and they think something about the parents. They make judgments in their minds, right? And so, replicas, things made in the image, right? God made man, and by man here, he's talking about man and woman, talking about all mankind. He made humanity in his image so that he could show and demonstrate and represent himself through us. Right? I want to point out, when God created mankind in his own image, like I said, he made the male and female. Right? And this is kind of an aside from today's sermon, but I did want to point it out. God is referred to as a father. He refers to himself and he is addressed in the masculine. But he is not a man as we know it. But, to be clear, the Bible never says that God is female. The Bible never says that God is a mother. God is the Father. Okay? But, nevertheless, when you look at when God created mankind, it took creating man and woman, making us both male and female, to be able to demonstrate the fullness of God's character, of who he is. Right? Man alone was not enough to be an image of God, and neither was woman alone. But the two together are two halves that complement each other, and they together complete the image of God. Right? And I see this complementary relationship very clearly in parenting, where the dad represents half of the equation, and the dad raises the child well, but he can't do it alone. He alone is not enough. That's where the mom plays a big part, right? The mom does things that the dad can't, the dad does things that the mom can't, and together, the two of them bring together a fullness of the nurturing and the care that the child needs. Now, I want to go on the record to say that the woman was not the lesser sex by any means, right? Many people would misinterpret the Bible, and they would say that because God created the woman as a helper to the man, that she is like the assistant or some lesser person here just to support the man. But you know what? Think of it this way. Who is stronger? The person who's doing the helping or the person that needs the help? Right? So the woman was not a lesser person. The two were equals, and they were different, and they completed each other in what they needed to do here on the earth, for what God put us here for. Now, back to what I was saying, though, about being created in God's image. Okay? So God made us like him. Right? If you look at the account of creation, God made us like him, and in doing so, he set us apart from the rest of creation. Right? When you look at God and the process of creation, and everything he created it, and at the end of that day, he said, and he saw that it was good. Right? Everything he created by his hand, and he saw that it was good. When we come to man, we see something special about the way God made us. Right? All of creation was made to demonstrate God's glory, no doubt. But man alone, and by man I mean mankind alone out of all creation was made in God's image. Right? So there's a difference there. Creation was made to demonstrate God's glory, but we were made specifically in the image of God. He made us in his image for what reason? 1 John chapter 3, verse 1. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called children of God. We were made in his image so that he would call us his children, and that he would bestow his love on us. We were made in his image to receive his love. Right? Think about that. He created us in his image so that we would be recipients of his love. That's kind of a nice thing to think about. Right? God was very purposeful, very specific in how he made us as recipients of his love. And God made mankind. God made mankind not only to be the recipients of his love, but also to be the channels through which God's love would be shown and demonstrated. Okay, I want to read to you another verse in Genesis chapter 2. If you're still in Genesis, turn with me there. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground. You know, God made us out of dust, right? And now, years later, we know this scientifically. We understand that our body is made mostly of organic material. I think carbon is a basic compound that we're all made of, right? And at the end of our days, when this body is no longer needed, we say goodbye, our spirits leave, and this body returns to dust. It's called decomposition. Not a nice thing to think about, but we are made from dust. God made us from dust in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. But he didn't make us with dust and just leave us here as lumps of dust and statues, right? What did God do to give us life? He breathed into the man's nostrils. He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Right? Let that sink in a little bit this morning. The thing that sets us apart, besides that we were created in the image of God, was that God himself breathed his life into us. He breathed his life into us, and that's how we are alive. We are all part of creation, yes, but we are special in creation. Nothing else in creation was created and made and brought to life by the breath of God, except for mankind. Right, so we really are set apart, and we are the only part of creation that received life from God's breath, and he imbued us, he filled us with his own life so that we would be like him and that we would be capable of loving. Right? 1 John chapter 4, verse 19, one of my favorite verses. We love him, we love God. Why and how do we love God? Because he first loved us. He loved us with his own life. He gave us his own life so that we are able to love. And as a response, as he loves us, we love him in return. And in that ability to love, then God calls us to love one another. Right? So we were made in God's image to receive love from him and to give love. And so I don't know if you ever had these moments. You have one of these moments where you stop and you ask, what is the meaning of life? Right? And I've had moments like that, and it comes in different forms. There's days where you ask, what is the meaning of life? Because you just have nothing else to think about. You want to ponder something deep. There are days when you ask yourself, what is the meaning of life? Because you look at your life and you think, is there a point of going on? Right? But whatever it is that brings you to ask that question, what is the meaning of life? I'm going to say this again, what I said last week. We need to understand our place in creation. And we need to understand that our place in creation is a good place. It's a very special place because God looks at us and he calls us beloved. As we believe in God and are saved, God looks at us and he calls us his children. So we have a very special place in all of creation. And that gives meaning to our lives. If nothing else, to receive love, to be the object of God's love, to be the recipient of God's blessings, to be showered by his love. And many of us, in our journey of faith, in having believed Jesus, we have experience. We have experience. We don't just hear about and read about God's love, right? We have experienced his love, and we've been so filled by it. Well, guess what you do as a container when you are filled? What do you do when you have a cup? Let's say one of you goes to the back and you take one of the paper cups and you start pouring in coffee. And for whatever reason, you don't stop. Right? Coffee fills halfway, 3/4, 7/8, 5, 15, 16, 31, 30 seconds. And then what happens next when you hit the top? It starts to spill over. It starts to overflow. That's what we were made for. We were put here on earth to receive God's love. And because his love is so abundant, it fills us right to the top. And then it overflows. Right? What do we do with the overflow? I just fall on the ground. No, we are called as children of God, as believers, to go out and give that love to others. So we have this special, very special place. If you ever question your meaning in life, number one, God loves you. Number two, God calls you as you are loved by him to go out and love others. Right? So you are special and you serve a purpose. You know, when I come to believe in Jesus, when I become a child of God, all right, like the song that we sang this morning, when I remember that I have been crucified to Christ, it's no longer I who lives, but who lives? Christ lives in me. That life that God breathed into me, the life of God. When I become a believer and my relationship is restored to God out of sin and back into his good graces again, it is Christ that lives in me, not I who lives, but Christ who lives in me, and through me and through you, God is able to bring his love to someone who is hurting. God is able to bring his love to someone who is lost. God is able to bring your love to someone who needs desperately to be loved. Because there could be someone else out there who's wondering, what's the point in life? Why should I live another day? And God may be calling you as he fills you with his love to go out and talk to someone. And a lot of times we don't know. A lot of times we don't know why God sends us somewhere. A lot of times we don't understand what God has in his plan. But many times God will move our heart and say, you know what, Jason, call so-and-so. Send a text to so-and-so. Let them know you've been thinking about them. And you know what? I try as best as I can to respond to those promptings. Because I know I've been on the receiving end of it. There's been days, there's been mornings where I'm struggling. And someone out of the blue calls me. My friend from the East Coast will call me and hey, how are you doing? I didn't expect this brother to call me. And I don't think he knew why he was calling me. But it was right at that moment that I needed to hear a voice to bring some comfort into my life. And this brother on the other end of the country, he's filled with God's love, and he's being moved by God to go out and love. He's fulfilling his meaning in life. And in doing so, he's brought comfort to my life and helped me to understand and see again, I am loved by God also. And so this is God's doing in creation and in putting us here on the earth. We all have a part to play. We all have a role to be loved and to love. And this is a wonderful, wonderful thought, brothers and sisters and friends. A wonderful thought that I was made number one, I was made in the image of God. If you've ever felt a lack of confidence in yourself, when I grew up, I was looking at my junior high yearbook with my daughter and my wife the other day, and I was joking around, saying, Dad used to be such a good-looking kid, and my daughter turned to one of the pages. She's like, wait, no, but you were really chubby. I was really not confident in myself. Right? And for many ways, having come as a new immigrant, not speaking English well, people made fun of me for my bowl cut, haircut, and whatever. There was just a lot of things that just made me not sure of myself. Right? And I don't know how many of you feel that way, but remember this: we are made in the image of God. So the next time you look in the mirror, tell yourself, hey, image of God, not bad, not bad, right? And we were made in the image of God to know him, right? This God, the creator of the universe. There's a song there's a line in this one song that I love so much. This is a God whose hands placed the stars in a universe. Those stars that I saw from that train, millions and billions of miles away, the expanse of the universe is beyond my comprehension. God's hands, right? His hands put those stars there. This God said, I'm making you so you can get to know me. Right? I don't know if any of you have been starstruck, meeting celebrities. I did meet a celebrity once. Gwen Stefani, any of you know Gwen Stefani? So back in the day when she was big, and no doubt, I was in a band. I went to play at House of Blues in LA, and she was part of the awards ceremony. And no doubt was there. So we went up to outside the dressing room waiting to get autographs. And these 2 guys come out. So I thought, okay, so her band has her and 3 other guys, so these must be the guys in the band. So I was like, can you sign the CD, please? They looked at me. We're the photographers, dude. But anyways, a lot of times we're starstruck by celebrities, by famous people, by some politicians. And look, this is God. This is God. He's greater than any of these movie stars and politicians, celebrities. And he says, I made you, and I made you special the way you are, because I want you to get to know me. Come on, let's get to know each other, right? God, the creator of the universe, wants to have a conversation with me. And you, think about that. And he made me in his image to show his glory. When somebody looks at me, the purpose of me being here is that they would see God's glory, right? That's an amazing thought. And to demonstrate God's love to others that need it. Right? What a wonderful thought that I have this second chance in life. I have the second chance in life. My future is open wide. I like the song says this morning. I have a second chance in life. My future is open wide. I know that Christ lives in me. From the moment that I believe in Jesus Christ as my Savior, he lives in me, and I get to fulfill this purpose. I get to show people who he is. I get to demonstrate his love to others. I am standing here as a representative of Jesus Christ, and not just because I'm a pastor, but being a pastor has nothing to do with it. Every single one of us as a believer in Jesus is called to be his representative. And so I hope this morning as we look at how God created us, that it gives you a little bit of spark in your life of why we live, why we wake up each morning, why we do the things that we do. There is very much a purpose that's been given to us. We were made in God's image. Let's close with that thought. Let's close in prayer. Dear God, I thank you. I thank you that when you made Adam, when you made Eve, when you made all of mankind, you were very specific in why you made us, and you were very specific in detail in how you made us. And we, each of us, are fearfully and wonderfully made in your image. And for that, I thank you. I thank you that we can stand here today and say, we are made in your image and we are your handiwork. And so, Lord, fill our lives with purpose. Fill our lives with purpose that we would go, Lord, and be ready to show you to others. That we would go and be ready to demonstrate your love. That we would go there as your image, Lord. I thank you and I pray all these things in Jesus' name.